months-long silence has finally been broken. The question has finally been answered. For months now, I have been asking you guys if anyone has seen Bob Dylan Mulvaney lately. For a full year, Bobby D front and center. We could not go a week without seeing the face of Maybelline. The professional cucumber remover was mainstream. Bobby D interviewing really important people like our fearless leader, the esteemed John Biden. Dylan was on talk shows where Drew Barrymore was starstruck, worshiping at the feet of her Lord and risen King. Oh, Dylan, I am overwhelmed by your presence. I can't believe I share a commonality with my Savior. We both have masculine names. Dylan Mulvaney also has something in common with the King, LeBron James. They have both never met a camera that they didn't like. For the past year, Bobby D has been begging for America's attention. Most attention seekers crave attention, obviously. Doesn't matter if the attention's positive or negative. People suffering from ASD, attention-seeking disorder, they go into withdrawals when they can't get their fix. The withdrawal symptoms, they are similar to those birthing persons who are suffering through OMB, Orange Man Bad. Convulsions, hives, feminine facial hair. It's a brutal disease. Doctors at Woke Memorial Hospital, they have diagnosed Dylan Mulvaney with a stage 4 case of ASD. This level of the disease cannot be cured. There is no amount of preparation H that can be applied to eliminate the effects. But it's strange. Since April 1st, Dylan Mulvaney has been traumatized by attention. Bobby D has been hiding in the basement, perhaps playing along in the bongo band. This drastic change in behavior, it has confused doctors at Woke Memorial. They have never seen someone suffering through ASD begging not to be noticed, begging not to have attention. But that is exactly what's happened the last 3 months with Dylan Mulvaney. Outside of a rare appearance on Talk Tick or an interview on YouTube that no one watched, Dylan Mulvaney has ghosted. Shitfucks were concerned. They believed the mainstream career of Dylan Mulvaney had been buried in the woke cemetery. Now, as you guys know, once a career is buried, it ain't never coming back. Just ask the donut diva Brian Stelter, Chris the Bongo Licker, former president at CNN. And who could forget the bearded lemon Don Lemon? But there's a huge difference between those three dudes and Dylan Mulvaney. The diva, the licker, the lemon, those were all mere mortals. According to deacons at Woke United Methodist, Dylan Mulvaney is a deity. Earlier this afternoon, the stone began rolling across the grave. Light began shining into the tomb. The reflection of the light was so powerful, shining off the face of Maybelline, that it blinded poor Rachel Levine. Lonely men across America sang songs of worship as the mainstream career of Dylan Mulvaney was resurrected. The grave could not hold Mulvaney. Now you would think, with someone being given a second chance at life, they would come out of the grave with messages of joy. Not Bobby D, though. No! Just like Bob Greiner, Bob Dylan was filled with anger and complaints this afternoon. Dylan was playing the role of victim to perfection. Bobby D wants you to know, I'm mad, real mad. Upset with online bullies, upset with the boycott of Bud Light. Last but not least, Dylan Mulvaney is really pissed off with Bud Light. Shouldn't that be the other way around? Shouldn't Bud Light be pissed off with Dylan Mulvaney? I know I would be upset if I paid someone hundreds of thousands of dollars to endorse my product and it ended up costing me billions of dollars. Apparently, though, Dylan Mulvaney doesn't understand how business works. But before we get into the video of the resurrection, let's pause for 1 second to get into the sponsor for this video, my friends over at Ground News. Ground News has become one of my favorite sources for access to the mainstream media. From the bias meter, which highlights left-right media bias in certain stories, to their coverage of local news stories specific to your area, Ground News is your one-stop shop for sourcing information. But one of my favorite features that is offered by Ground News is the blind spot. The blind spot really shows you how dishonest and biased the mainstream media can be. Check out this recent article on Hunter Biden. There have been 7 articles published on this story, none of them coming from far-left media outlets. Nothing from the New York Times, nothing from the Washington Post, nothing from USA Today. I wonder why. Another thing that is great about ground news, they do not allow bias to get in the way of presenting information. As you can see right here, articles from the Post Millennial and Fox News, they have a mixed factuality rating. The most reliable source for this particular story is Deseret News. Ground news has become my go-to source for the information that I present to you guys every day. Do not allow yourself to be fooled. Do not be uninformed. Let ground news give you the same benefits that they give me every day. It is 100% free to sign up, and you can save 30% off your Vantage level subscription today by going to ground.news/BTL. All right, after months of anticipation, Dylan Mulvaney finally broke the silence earlier this afternoon. Remember the Bud Light cans that featured the face of Bobby D? You guys remember that? According to Dylan Mulvaney, those cans should be placed inside a historical museum protected by bulletproof glass. What? What the fuck is so historical about a crossover promotion between Bud Light and Maybelline? You know what? Maybe Dylan Mulvaney is right. This Bud Light can is historical. When we look back on this 10, 15, 20 years from now, we will remember this can as the reason America's leading beer company lost a third of their business in 2 or 3 months. Who would have thought one 12-ounce can could be so powerful? Once this video was uploaded to Instagram this afternoon, beer companies across America were in a full-blown panic. Dylan Mulvaney started the video by taking a sip of beer out of a plastic cup. Executives with Miller Lite, Coors Light, Modelo, Corona, they were on the edge of their seats. Oh shit, please tell me that Bobby D's not drinking our beer. They knew if Dylan Mulvaney publicized the beer that was being used, sales would drop by 30%. Luckily though, for these other beer companies, the identity of the beer remains unknown. About midway through the resurrection, Dylan Mulvaney goes into full-blown victim mode. Bobby D explains how lonely it's been the past 3 months, how transphobia has taken over social media, bullies filling the comments section on Instagram. And to make matters worse, Dylan Mulvaney's upset because Bud Light tried to distance themselves from this endorsement. Bud Light has made one bad decision after another the last few months. The one good decision they've made is distancing themselves from Dylan Mulvaney, and now they're being criticized for that. Watch for yourself.
What transpired from that video was more bullying and transphobia than I could have ever imagined. And I should have made this video months ago, but I didn't. And I was scared, and I was scared of more backlash, and I felt personally guilty for what transpired. So I patiently waited for things to get better. But surprise, they haven't really. And I was waiting for the brand to reach out to me, but they never did. And for months now, I've been scared to leave my house. I have been ridiculed in public. I've been followed. And I have felt a loneliness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. And I'm not telling you this because I want your pity. I am telling you this because if this is my experience from a very privileged perspective, know that it is much, much worse for other trans people. For a company to hire a trans person and then not publicly stand by them is worse, in my opinion, than not hiring a trans person at all, because it gives customers permission to be as transphobic and hateful as they want. And the hate doesn't end with me. It has serious and grave consequences for the rest of our community. And you know, we're customers too.
I thought Dylan Mulvaney was a brunette. Did Bobby D contact the wicked wig of the woke Joy Reid and confiscate some of her wigs? Here's a good question for a poll. Who models the blonde wig better? Joy Reid, the professional, or Dylan Mulvaney, the imposter? Couple of things to unpack here. Number one, Dylan Mulvaney is actually right. Transgender people, they consume beer too. But let's look at this purely from a business perspective. Let's look at this, how the marketing department at Bud Light should have looked at this before all their asses got fired. Transgender people make up less than 1% of the population. Now, to be fair, That number does not include the identifiers. Well, Casey, what's the difference? Well, an example of someone who is transgender would be Caitlyn Jenner. Katie J removed the Franken beans and donated them to a woman with aspirations of becoming a man. An identifier is someone like Leah Thomas, someone who chooses to identify as a woman but still has a 5 o'clock shadow. But let's just say between the transgender people and the transgender identifiers, they make up 5% of the population. If you're a beer company, do you want to market your brand to 5% or 95%? Number 2. Dylan Mulvaney claims to be the victim of bullying. I read through several comment pages on Instagram. I came across very few instances of bullying. So I'm assuming Dylan Mulvaney is referencing the boycott of Bud Light as an example of bullying. Truth be told, the boycott of Bud Light had very little to do with Dylan Mulvaney personally. They could have used Leah Thomas, Rachel Levine, the backlash would have been the same. Normal people made an example out of Bud Light. The message was clear. Stop shoving pride down our throats. Normal people are tired of these major brands tucking their dongs in the rainbow thong. Normal people are tired of these major brands catering to a small segment of the population instead of representing the rest of us, the majority. I have no doubts that Dylan Mulvaney is subject to online bullying, but guess what? So am I. So is everyone else who chooses to make their living on a public platform. It's not transphobia, it's just life, it's business. And number 3. Dylan Mulvaney criticizes Bud Light for refusing to stand by this endorsement. This is one of those rare instances where I'm actually going to defend Bud Light. Put yourself in their shoes. You paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for this endorsement. When companies pay money to influencers, they are expecting to see a return on their investment. What return did Bud Light receive? They lost billions of dollars. Of course, they're not going to come out publicly and defend Dylan Mulvaney. Of course, they are going to distance themselves. Like I said a second ago, that's the only good decision Bud Light's made in the last 3 months. Dylan Mulvaney claimed Bud Light not standing beside a trans person through all this backlash, that is actually worse than not hiring a trans person to begin with. I feel pretty confident that Bud Light will never hire a transgender person again. Dylan Mulvaney will never have to worry about this ever again. I would imagine those endorsement deals are shrinking faster than Don's Lemons at an all-girl strip club. Earlier this morning, Bud Light CEO Brendan Whitworth, he was the guest on CBS Mornings. Casey, what the hell is that? It's the lowest rated morning show on broadcast television, hosted by the huge embarrassing failure Gayle King. Brendan Whitworth was asked if partnering with Dylan Mulvaney was a mistake. He was asked if, looking back in hindsight, would he partner with Bobby D again? Seems to me the answer here is obvious. Fuck no. This was a golden opportunity for Brendan Whitworth. This was his chance to appeal to normal people. How'd he answer the question? He didn't. He simply said, Bud Light will continue to support the LGBT community. Also, we love algebra here at Anheuser-Busch. We will also support the plus identifiers. Bud Light has learned absolutely nothing in the last 3 months. Their doofus CEO, he's still trying to please everyone. Instead, everyone remains pissed off. Normal people, they've all but forgotten about Bud Light. They no longer care. Even with all the 6-figure donations to pride parades, the pride community's still pissed off. And now, Dylan Mulvaney is pissed off because Bud Light is ashamed of their association. I mean, what a disaster. But give me your thoughts. Dylan Mulvaney goes after Bud Light because they distance themselves from this endorsement. Do you think it's over for Dylan Mulvaney? Do you think the endorsement deals are starting to dry up? You let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.